Interesting that today is the day we're going to talk to John Cox again, running for governor as a Republican in California, because all the news headlines are with these new polls out. Well, it looks like it's going to be Newsom and Cox. I mean, everybody's just declared it over, even though we haven't voted yet, that the Cox is going to be the guy to run against Newsom. They'll be the top two. So kind of changes the conversation a little bit.
Yeah, it does somewhat, but let's talk to John Cox, a Republican candidate for governor of the great state of California. He is an accountant, a businessman, a broadcaster, among other things. And he joins us now from our sainted, our beloved Fresno affiliate, KMJ. John, how are you, sir?
Great to be with you guys.
Excellent. It's good to talk to you. Your reaction to the polls, first of all, since that's the headline?
You know, it's something that I expected all the way along. The state of California has been mismanaged for decades now. The Democrats are going to have to own the high cost of living, the rotten business climate, the failing schools, the roads that are full of potholes and crowded. They keep taxing us. They don't want to reform government. They don't want to make it efficient. President Trump has endorsed me because he knows I'm a lifelong businessman, 40 years building a business, doing it with integrity and quality and efficiency, just like 19 other governors around the country that are businessmen.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. 19
states, including, by the way, guys, states like Maryland and Massachusetts and Michigan, pretty historically Democrat majorities in those states. And they have Republican business people who have, frankly, were never elected to any other job before, and that was their first successful, election, was the governor of the state. And by the way, they're the most popular governors in the country. Larry Hogan in Maryland is the number one Republican or Democrat most popular governor in the country.
I've barely been following this race, which I think puts me in perfect lockstep with most of the people that are living in the state of California, because people just, for whatever reason, the turnout has been terrible for a lot of these races. So you're talking to a pretty small audience that really gets into this stuff. So how do you want to convince people that they ought to get involved and vote for you, and it could actually make any difference?
You know, I think one of the reasons people are turned off of politics, guys, is this campaign is a living example of it. I mean, liberal Democrat special interests, Michael Bloomberg and people like that, have spent millions on deceptive, horribly misleading advertisements. Their mailboxes fill up. You see this on television. I think a lot of people look at this stuff and they say, gee, I'm not going to get involved in this. Right. These people just keep throwing money at it. The trouble with that attitude is that we get the government that we deserve, frankly, when we turn off, because these liberal cronies decide to run away with the government. They take it and they use it for their own purposes. And we have to live with the consequences. I mean, this state is the number one state for poverty. We have the highest tax burden in the country. The gas tax is a living example of this, guys. I mean, you know it. Instead of reforming Caltrans, which spends multiples of what Texas does to build roads, instead of reforming
That's interesting. I didn't know that. Let's just pause there. So to build the same sort of road, California spends a lot more than Texas does. That doesn't surprise me.
How striking is the difference, John?
Oh, my God. It's multiples, 3 to 4 times. I mean, we have supervisors on supervisors on supervisors. We have 3,500 extra staff positions we're paying for. I don't know if these guys are sitting at their desk surfing porn or what, but they're not working.
That's a heck of an accusation.
Well, they're not.
He said he doesn't know. They may be.
I'll
step in here, John.
I didn't say for sure, but you know what? The problem, guys, is that nobody in political life, no politician has much of an incentive to do anything about it, because if they do, the unions come and crush them at the ballot box with these ridiculous ads that you're seeing
like happened
now.
With Arnold.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
They crushed the Terminator. They terminated the Terminator, I always say. John
Cox is running for governor of California on the Republican side. Just real quickly, back to your reference to all the money being spent. I got this in my mailbox. And we'll talk a little bit about one of your Republican opponents, Travis Allen, in a minute or two. I think he's a fine and decent guy, but I got this campaign mailer that's promoting his candidacy.
Yeah.
Here he is with his beautiful wife and daughter in front of some sort of a fighter jet, and it touts his talents and his skills, his endorsements, his character, and just gives you hell, John Cox. Just gives you hell. And then I flip to the back page, And it says paid for by families and teachers for Antonio Villaraigosa for governor 2018. Isn't that interesting? With money from Michael Bloomberg and others.
So is that just, what was that? What is the attempt there, to split the vote?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Villaraigosa has absolutely no chance unless he can knock me down. And that piece, I've seen it, has all kinds of misleading statements, all kinds of lies. And it looks like it's a piece from my Republican opponent, but of course, and I think, I don't know if he's cooperating in it. If I were him, I would be denouncing it, but of course he's not doing that. They're trying to split the vote. They're trying to keep me down. And
to get Villaraigosa into the second slot with Gavin Newsom.
And you know what, guys? It's backfiring because Republicans are too smart for that. They look at the fine print. They look at see who paid for that. And they know that this is just playing games and trying to game the system, and they're responding to it. They're not going to believe it.
What do you think about the way California does it right now? Anyway, the idea that you go with the top two as opposed to a Republican versus a Democrat, because obviously Democrats thought that we'll just have all Democrat. Your choice will be Democrat or Democrat,
or the argument was we'll have more moderate candidates.
Yeah, well, that's not the reason.
What's happened? I mean, Gavin Newsom is to the left of Bernie Sanders. I mean, I don't think it's worked to get any kind of moderate candidates. I think it's worked to just exacerbate the...
back that up. Go ahead and back that up, that Gavin Newsom is to the left of Bernie Sanders.
Single-payer health care. He wants safe rooms in San Francisco so people can shoot up safely. I mean, if you had a child who was hooked on heroin, would you give them clean needles and give them a safe room to shoot up in? No, you'd get them help. That's a leftist socialist experiment. Gavin Newsom wants no fewer than 3 or 4 additional tax increases to put upon people who are already the most taxed people in the country. Gavin Newsom is to the left of Bernie Sanders. He wants to turn California into Venezuela. It's not going to happen. People aren't going to fall for it. They're going to elect a business person as the next governor.
I've actually referred to California as Calizuela once or twice. I got to remember that one to go along with Corruptifornia and Cal Unicorny.
Hey,
my favorite.
I think we could. Maybe you already know this, but I think you could help. We could help you out. We do a talk show. We talk about a lot of different stuff. We get emails and texts. The issue for the whole West Coast, but certainly in California, the issue that gets the most response by far. You want to talk about something that people are into? It's
Sanctuary State.
It's the homeless situation.
Oh, homeless. Okay.
The homeless thing.
Sanctuary State's another big one. Yeah,
but we talk about the homeless thing, and it just explodes because towns all across California have changed in the last couple of years, and people don't know what to do about it. What's your answer for that?
Well, it's not only, by the way, is it disgusting to look at, it's a human health hazard. The human waste dries up, gets into the atmosphere, and we breathe it. That is really dangerous. I mean, that's how the bubonic plague spread. Well, it's not an easy solution. There's several causes of it. The biggest one obviously is mental illness and substance abuse, and we obviously have to get those people help. We're a compassionate society, and I believe that we're a compassionate society. It does nobody any good, though, to let these people live on the sidewalk. That does no good whatsoever. Meanwhile, there's jobs and there's homes in the Central Valley that are going wanting. So we've got to make it clear that people have no right just to live on the sidewalks of San Francisco, Los Angeles, or San Diego.
You don't need my advice, but I'm telling you, that's a topic that gets people going. And part of it is like the sanctuary state thing. I agree with you. It's a hot one, but that's theoretical most of the time. You are going to brush up against the homeless situation today, wherever you are in California. You're going to see it today and get pissed off about it today, maybe multiple times.
And even the most liberal of enclaves are starting to wake up to, oh, wow, so if we let this run wild, it becomes completely unlivable. So, yeah, I think it's an issue with some real momentum.
How would Steven Spielberg like it if I pitched a tent in the street right outside his house? I mean, I don't think you have a right to just live anywhere you want to. I mean, I'm sorry, that's just not the case. Now, the other problem is the whole housing crisis, guys. I'm in the apartment business. That's my business for 35 years. And I build apartments for $80,000 a unit in Indiana, where the regulations aren't anywhere near as ridiculous as here. And here it's $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $700,000 in the Bay Area. I mean, this is nuts. It's regulations, it's approvals, it's delays, it's litigation, it's the taxes. It's not just the cost of the land. It's all the additional what we call soft costs that government are putting on these housing units. We got to streamline the process and get housing built less expensively.
Yeah, you won't get people to the polls with this, but the whole legalized blackmail system in California, as bought by the trial attorneys of the state, is such a huge impediment to housing. But anyway, Jack?
Got to ask you before we let you go, because this is an interesting part of our job, too, because in the past, the audience tended to be either for or against the president, our audience, depending on whether they're Republican or Democrat. With Trump, it's all over the map. It's a day-by-day, issue-by-issue thing. Tell us something about Donald Trump you don't like.
Oh, I don't know. I think I would like him to be a little bit more conciliatory on some of the Twitter things, but that's his personality. I mean, I've dealt with New York people before. I mean, some of them, are a little bit more aggressive. It's a tough place to do business, and I understand that. I'm from Chicago originally, and so, we tend to be more, compromising and more involved in building team efforts and things like that. So, I like what the president's done. I mean, it's famously said, I didn't vote for him because I wasn't sure he was a conservative, but I'm looking at what he's done. He's cut taxes, he's cut regulations, he's appointed conservative judges, he's stood up to Iran and North Korea and moved the embassy to Jerusalem. I think that was a real gutsy move there. I think it was the right thing to do. I like what this president's done. I'm happy he's there. He's a businessman who gets results. That's exactly what I'm going to try to do for California, get results. And I think that's what people here are waiting for.
When did you come to California, and what brought you?
My family's been here for 50 years, but my mom retired here in 1980. I just moved here about 10 years ago. I always tell people it took me 50 years to save up enough money to buy a house here.
That's pretty good.
Some people knock folks who come from elsewhere as not being worthy or something. To me, if somebody chooses to live somewhere,
well, besides if you're
and cares, I mean, why would you badmouth?
If your family history is there.
Well, right.
Like, I haven't lived in Kansas for years. I could go back there and care a lot about it.
Sure.
Yeah. So, you could.
I would agree. I think that's a dumb shot. But
and Jerry Brown is the only governor in the last 50 years who was born in California. How's that worked out for us?
Have you heard the rumors that he has late-stage syphilis?
That's Joe's been on that beat for quite some time.
No, he's losing his mind. That is clearly true, and we could use government that works. John, don't respond to that in any way. That is my advice to you.
I didn't hear a thing.
Right. His headphones cut out. That's unfortunate. John Cox is a businessman. He's the candidate for a governor in California. John, it's good to talk. Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.
I have a
Stay
feeling
in touch.
We'll be chatting between now and November.
Yeah. Well, we're also going to talk to Travis Allen, I think, tomorrow, who's John's Republican opponent, because we're the conscience of the nation.
We should have done it yesterday before the latest poll came out.
Well, maybe he will surge in the polls after our conversation. And also, we've repeatedly badgered Gavin Newsom to get on the show, but he politely says he'll get back to us all the time.
So John Cox did or didn't say Caltrans workers look at porn? Did he officially say that?
I will not indulge you in your character assassination.
No, the attempt is not character assassination. The attempt is to get something going like viral. That's what I'm trying to do to help us out.
No. I won't stoop to that. Besides.
You won't?
Besides. I was stooped when I woke up this morning. Besides, there are many, many departments of the state government where people look at porn all day. I don't think it's fair to single out Caltrans.
That was interesting. I hadn't heard that. That doesn't surprise me a bit. I mean, the same as the prisons and a lot of other things, but
right.
It costs way more to make the same road in California than it costs in Texas.
Can you put a certain percentage of it down? You got to pay people more, et cetera, higher cost of living? Yeah, of course. I don't know, what, 20, 30, 40, 50%? But 2, 3, 4 times as expensive? Please. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's because of the legalized lawsuit extortion thing I was talking about. But
and
you don't want to hear about that.
And however many environmental studies you have to do.
Well, and that's part of the blackmail thing. That's what they always use to blackmail companies into paying off the unions and the lawyers. The titmouse. What about the humble titmouse? There's been a highway here for 80 years. We're just going to repave it. It might hurt the titmouse. You got to pay us off or we're suing you. Happens all the friggin' time.
Going to be pretty hard for any Republican to beat Gavin Newsom. Pretty damned hard. Stay tuned to the Armstrong and Getty Show.
Armstrong and Getty.
The conscience of the nation.
Yes.